I won't dare tell you my real name, nor where I practice medicine, but you may call me Dr. John. I'm writing to unburden myself in hopes that this thing I've been afflicted with will find itself a new home, far away from my tormented soul. It started when I was in med school, studying anatomy. We were at the end of a crisp fall, and the dawn of winter was days away. They had assigned a cadaver to every 3 students in the class. My team was made up of myself, a guy named VJ, and a woman named Colette. VJ, a smiley, innocent young man, had come over from India and had only been in the U.S. a mere months, where Colette, a tall, almost model-like smart aleck, was one part aspiring doctor and one part witchy mystic. The way she held her sleek frame and spoke with a slight New England drawl gave away that she was from a well-to-do family in the Northeast. The cadaver that had been assigned to us was that of a young Caucasian man who had been hit by a drunk driver. The kid had to have been within a year or so of us in age, putting him around 22, and I can remember being a bit unsettled at the thought of having to remove organs from someone so close in appearance to myself. Nonetheless, we proceeded to remove and identify all the various organs, and get the body back into its storage tank within the allotted time. Our team had completed our gross anatomy dissection, only it wasn't as simple as dissection. We had to come back the following week, the start of the holiday break, to box up the innards, cut the cadaver into smaller pieces, and take it out for disposal. Incineration. Yes, there's much they don't tell you about med school until it's too late. We returned to find that side of campus largely deserted. Aside from one other team of students cleaning up the remains of their cadaver in the next room, it was just the 3 of us. I was young, naive, and fueled by stress and testosterone. Taking a bone saw to a human being didn't faze me one bit. Colette, too, seemed pretty relaxed about the whole thing. But VJ looked ill. "What is it?" I asked, seeing his color yellowing as we opened the storage tank. I can't dispose of this man in such a manner." Colette laughed. "Is it the chopping or the incinerating you're worried about? You already helped us yank his insides out." VJ stared at what was left of the young dead face, gasped aloud, cupping his hands to his mouth, and then darted towards the toilet. I turned to Colette. "You sure have a way with words," I said, partially entertained and partially humored. We didn't wait for VJ as we took to the cadaver, cutting him into 2-foot sections. "Do you think VJ is going to make it?" asked Colette as she wiped a bit of blood from her wrist with a towel. "Hard to say. I don't know if I will." You seem to have the stomach for this kind of work," she laughed. Colette was attractive, dark, gutsy. I wanted her, or at least to impress her. "Want to have some fun with VJ?" I asked, playing up my mystique. She smiled. "What do you have in mind?" I stood up and began sifting through the bag of previously removed organs. As I fished around, I heard the distinct sound of Christmas carolers outside. The smell of formaldehyde had become so strong that we had opened every window to offer a little respite. It was Silent Night. Of all the songs to hear while you're cutting up a dead body, I found the cadaver's eyeballs and placed them in front of my own, turning to Colette in a horrific voice.
"I'd like to look in at our friend VJ now."
Colette burst into a fit of laughter. "You wouldn't," she flirtingly dared. She was right, generally speaking. I wasn't much a prankster in my youth. I was a rather serious med student, but there was something about Colette. She, how shall I say, flirted with the dark a little. Her eyes beamed up at me. I had opened my mouth, and I had thusly been tested. "Take a walk with me," I said, trying to sound way more tough and secure than I was. She cleaned off her hands and then joined me as I crept down the empty hallway towards the men's room. The sounds of VJ washing his hands and face could be heard through the door as we neared, his drawn-out, stress-laden breathing and all. I glanced over at Colette, who was covering her mouth with her hand to hide the smile that she desperately didn't want seen. I raised the eyeballs up to mine and inched right up to the door. It was now or never. I couldn't turn back. A sickly and tattered-looking VJ opened the door, glancing upward instantly.
"We are watching you,"
I said in my horrific voice. I could hear Colette's laughter before I could hear mine. Only when I pulled the dead kid's eyes out from in front of my own, I knew something had gone terribly wrong. VJ stumbled backwards, clutching his hand to his chest and letting out something between a scream and a gasp before dropping to the floor. His eyes were fixated and tremoring as beads of sweat pulsed down his brow and onto his cheeks. I dropped to the floor to help him. "God, no," I shouted. "Come on, VJ. Everything's okay, man. Breathe." It was too late. He was a surefire code blue and was not coming back. I started CPR while Colette dialed 911. Only VJ let out a long grunt, and I could feel the life leave his body. I had liked the guy well enough, but he wasn't my friend, and I was more scared of losing everything I had worked for than I was riddled with guilt. I turned to Colette in a panic. "Hey, can we keep this between us?" I asked nervously. "Keep what between us? We were out here cleaning this mess up when it happened." I hugged her, thanked her, and then we played it super cool when the paramedics arrived. Of course, they didn't question a thing. In fact, it turns out VJ had a long-standing heart condition. We also hadn't said anything aloud, at least not loud enough to garner any unwanted attention. And no one had seen our little prank. We cleaned up that day and tried our best just to move on. Which we did. I graduated and went into optometry. Strangely enough, Colette went into cardiology and is now an emergency heart surgeon. Even stranger than all of that, we married 3 years after graduation, and my love for her has stayed strong. A few months back marked the 30th anniversary of our little secret. It was a normal night, like so many. We made dinner, made love, and took in some music by the fireplace. Colette received a call around 9 p.m. to head into the hospital, something I've grown used to in recent years. I poured myself a brandy and sat back, listening to nothing but the crackling of the fire. As I dozed off, I could hear Christmas carolers outside beginning to sing. Of all things, Silent Night. The irony of it all pulled me from my slumber, and there as I opened my eyes, that's when I saw them. VJ, yellow and blue like when he expired, standing right next to the eyeless Cadaver, who was holding his rotting hands up to his vacant eye sockets the same way I had when VJ died.
"We are watching you,"
screeched VJ. I jumped up in horror, falling from the couch onto the floor. Only, I couldn't get up. The pain in my chest was a searing burn, and I felt my lungs begin to collapse. I was having a heart attack. They inched closer to me as I laid there helpless. And as they closed in on me, all went black. I came to in the hospital with Colette by my side. Saved by my own wife. How lucky was I? Are they here? I asked her, still too weak to speak clearly. Who, my love? VJ and the corpse. What? They came to me. They're watching me. They're gonna take me with them, I said, beginning to sob. Colette sat back. You've been through so much, dear. Rest for now. Since that day, my heart has not been right. I get angina attacks regularly, and whenever my poor old ticker has the slightest hint of malfunction, there they are, the eyeless corpse and my dead anatomy partner. Colette, tired of hearing about them daily, has now left me. She, along with my friends and family, all think I've lost my mind. But I swear to you, to anyone who will ever see or hear these words, I can assure you that I will likely die from heart failure, and that when I do, the last thing I will see on this earth will be that God-forsaken cadaver, holding his hands to his sockets and the yellowish-blue face of our dead VJ, reminding me that they've been watching, waiting, and it is then I will go with them into an endless, silent night.